Last month, I invested $10K to work with the guy who is helping me productize my intellectual property over here at the Podcast Factory. Now, if you're wondering, productize is a fancy way of taking your knowledge, what's inside your cabeza, and turning it into products people will pay for. Now, this guy is a whiz. That's why I invested into working with him. Anytime I make an investment like this one, I want to make the most of the opportunity. That's why I jumped in with both feet and started doing work. At the very beginning, he's got this video where he talks about giving yourself permission to be wrong. You won't always know the right answer. Your first choice won't always be right. You have to take action and take account of what you do. Then you review the results and make the necessary changes to get on course with your target. Now, there's nothing wrong with being wrong as long as you learn from it. Speaking of being wrong, when I started productizing my offer, I thought I should focus on the part where I know we give the biggest value to our clients. It's the one thing that makes us unique amongst all other podcast agencies in the world. It's the reason our clients' shows connect with their listeners at the deepest, most profound levels. And it happens in the first 3 phases of our direct response podcasting framework. The client cloner. Who are you talking to? The content vault. What are you saying to them? The client matrix. What do you want them to do? Being a good little student, I rushed to create a group coaching program to test the concept. Me and a friend teamed up to sell 10 spots in the program I'm calling Profit First Podcasting. The concept? Most podcasts fail because they fail to plan for profits. We spend 21 days planning your podcast so when you finally record, you'll have a built-in way to profit from the very start. You're probably thinking, what's wrong with that? You have an idea, you launch a pilot program, you sell some spots, you help people, you get feedback, you make it better, you sell it again. This is an awesome formula for launching almost any project, and I've used it successfully over and over again in a handful of markets. The only thing wrong was a couple weeks later, we identified a more robust opportunity that involves certifying implementers in direct response podcasting. That means we get to keep the strategy work, which I love, and contract out the production work to our certified implementers. Even though we're switching directions on the productizing, it's not a total loss. The time we spent with the group in Profit First Podcasting has created a new product that I'm adding to my book funnel as an upsell. And the guy I teamed up with is using it as a premium bonus for his high-level coaching program. See? Being wrong ain't so bad. Isn't it funny how you know exactly what to say when you're sitting face to face with someone? But have you ever sat down to record and thought to yourself, I don't know what to talk about today. I hope I'm not being boring. I don't want to say the wrong thing. You don't have to worry about that ever again if you do what I show you inside today's show. It's a method I call tactical TMI. And the idea is to share too much info about your personal life in a tactical way to get listeners to bond with you and like you. Have I ever told you how my eyes get red and puffy, my ears begin to itch like they're on fire, and my nose begins to gush boogers when I inhale too much oak pollen? To make matters worse, I think Orlando is the oak tree capital of Florida, or at least it feels like it. Anyways, one of my early favorite shows when I first started listening to podcasts was called Internet Business Mastery. I don't know if it's still around, but I used to love it. One day, one of the hosts talked about a neti pot and how it helped him with his allergies. I was having a flare-up that day. I went to the store and bought one, used it, and felt better immediately. If you don't know what a neti pot is, look it up. Some people compare them to waterboarding. I call them relief. In fact, I neti pot at least twice a day now, and I've never felt better. I want you to remember something here. No story is boring to the right listener. If you're allergic to oak, you've got allergies, you've ever tried a neti pot, or you felt like you were being tortured and waterboarded, then you can relate to this story. I'm not sure if I ever told you, but I am a big fan of Sean D'Souza. His 3-month vacation podcast was one of my favorites. In fact, I took a lot of ideas on how he tells stories and how he uses music, and I use them here for the Daddy's Working podcast. Now, as much as I like Sean's podcast, what I like even more is how the dude sells. He's got this whole idea on sequential selling. It's amazing, but I love to buy from the guy. This year, I was stoked to get into his article writing program. He calls it the toughest article writing course. He only opens the doors once per year, charges a premium, and kicks your butt into action the entire time you work with him. I set aside some time and money because I was determined to jump into the program this year. Usually the course opens around June, but after doing some research, I found out he's not doing it this year. What the heck, man? Anyways, you're probably wondering, why are you telling me this story right now? Because Sean is one of the best storytellers I know. I've invested into so many of his premium products I can't even tell you. And I always get tons of value for the money and time I invest with him. Last year, I invested in his products course and learned more about storytelling than I expected. And today, I want to share one of the biggest lessons he gave me. I was pleasantly surprised when I got into Sean's products course to find that more than anything else, he talked about story and story structure. Stories are the way people learn. Stories are the way information is passed. When you start with a story, most people can't resist hanging around to find out how the story ends. There are 4 main types of stories that will help you control the pace of the information you share with your listeners. We'll get into those in a second, but first, if you share dry information, if you hard teach in your presentations, if you share boring numbers and stats, people will retreat into the back of their brains and tune you out. The only way to break through people's distraction is to pull them into a story, make them care, and then, and only then, they'll hang on every word. So enough dilly-dallying. Let's jump into the 4 ways to tell better stories. Pace. So inside Sean's product course, he shares the acronym PACE. P-A-C-E. There are 4 main story types. Personal stories. These should be the easiest to come up with. You have them all the time. I shared 2 with you already, my booger bonding story and being wrong. If you don't like talking about yourself, or if you're not into technical TMI, you can make these stories about another person or even your listener. For instance, when I was talking about my oak allergies, I could have said, what if you were deathly allergic to oak and you saw a cloud of yellow-green pollen coming your way? What would you do? I would neti pot. I would stay away from the pollen and then I would neti pot, but you get the idea. Analogies. These are by far my favorite types of stories. The only problem is I'm not really great at them yet, but I'm working on it. I am working on it. Analogies compare one thing to another. Just yesterday, I was recording financial advisor marketing with my friend, James Pollard, and he did an episode where he compared financial advisor's business to Tony Soprano. He said Tony always wanted feedback in person. He didn't want people talking behind his back. If any of his people had something to say, they'd better say it to his face. Same goes for financial advisors. Even if it hurts, even if they don't want to hear it, it's better to get client feedback to your face so you have an opportunity to do something about it. All right, so listen, gotta pay the bills. So here is a quick advertisement for your ears that I think you're gonna find useful. How would you like to spend more time with your family and less time on your business? Before anyone chooses to do business with you, they need to know one important thing. Can I trust you? The only problem is building trust can take forever. And I know you don't have that kind of time. But What if there was a way to build trust in minutes instead of years? You'd want that, wouldn't you? Good news, buckaroo. That's exactly what you'll get inside my digital daddy's toolkit. It's got my top 3 speed influence tools to make you a trusted expert in any market quickly. Go to daddysworking.com/DDT to grab your copy today. Speaking of saying it to my face, this is the perfect time to tell you. If you got something to say about the show, if you have any feedback at all, go to iTunes. Give us a rating and a review. 1 star, 5 stars, it doesn't matter. Tell us what you think about the show. And for sure, I will read it and I will likely do something about it, whether it's make fun of you or actually record new episodes on whatever you say. So yeah, go to iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a review. Case studies. This is a great proof element. When you can share a story of how a person used your product or service and got a great result, people will lean in and listen. People love stories about other people. And when you can frame them as a case study, it's not like you're bragging about what you do. You're merely showing the listener how they can enjoy the same great benefits by working with you. Of course, you don't have to limit these case studies to your clients. You can Google case studies on almost any topic and come up with interesting stories to illustrate any point you're trying to make. We use case studies all the time. You can check them out. thepodcastfactory.com/case-studies. Examples. Sometimes people get confused here, and even me, I get confused on this sometimes. Some people have been think case studies and examples are the same thing. And the short answer is yes and no. When you share a concept and you show how it's used, that's an example. Like when I told you about analogies and I gave you the example of how James used The Sopranos. But case studies and examples can be used interchangeably. There's no set rule. You just got to decide which type of story will work for you and use it. The best storytellers combine all 4 types of stories in their presentations to help people remember core concepts. When you share a well-crafted story, people won't be able to resist listening to the very end. They'll remember what you said, and they'll even be able to repeat it back to you. Wow. We covered too much today. I'm probably going to be mad at myself for putting this out there, but let's do a quick recap. First, it's okay to be wrong as long as you learn from it. Second, sharing TMI can work for you if you use it tactically. Third, to tell stories people can remember and repeat, use PACE, personal stories, analogies, case studies, and examples. Somebody stop me. I can't help myself today. I'm like hard teaching the heck out of storytelling for some reason, but I want to give you a huge bonus. This is so big. It's one of the most effective presentation formulas I have ever seen. And it combines everything we talked about to make your stories more memorable and impactful. And I first learned this deconstructing one of my friend's books, Mr. Ben Settle. He's a great storyteller, prolific author. And I noticed this formula he was using and I wrote it down and I try to use it whenever I can. And now that you're going to learn it, you need to use it for every presentation. This formula will endear your readers to you and make them customers faster than anything else I've ever seen. You got a pen and paper? You ready? Number 1, start with a story that demonstrates why this point is important, whatever point you're making. Number 2, give an analogy. Number 3, finish with an example. You got that? Start with a story that demonstrates why your point is important. Give an analogy, finish with an example, and people will not be able to resist your stories. They'll be able to take fast action on what you tell them, and they'll get big wins fast, which will make them customers faster. So that's all I've got for you today. I don't know what's coming up next time, but I will tell you this. If you're listening to these words right now, if you have been listening for a while and you haven't given us a rating and review on wherever you listen, shame on you. Bad. But more importantly than the rating and review, I don't care about that as much as I care about you subscribing to this show. So when a new episode comes out, it is delivered right to your pocket and you have a chance to listen to it. That's all I've got for you today. Daddy's out.
This is the podcastfactory.com.